It's a really pertinent question to ask how well prepared the coalition is to take over the reins of government, because if there'd been a different election result in the United States in November 2012, then we'd have a new president in the White House right now, and the Republicans would be implementing a transition to government plan that had been more than 12 months in the making. Now, Australia's a very different political system, but many of the challenges of taking over the reins of government, which is what a transition is, are similar. And unlike the United States, where an incoming administration has 3 months to prepare, and probably a year before that they're thinking about it and doing the necessary work, if you get elected on the Saturday night as Prime Minister, you're getting briefed as the incoming government on the Sunday morning. So in fact, in lots of ways, the transition question is more important in Australia than it is in the United States. And yet, ironically, Australian political parties are very loath to do transition planning. They're sort of funny, superstitious people, and they get worried about doing it, that it'll seem hubristic or that they're measuring the curtains before they actually take over. There's some very important questions that a transition to government plan ought to address. Often parties plan for the first 100 days, implementing election commitments. But increasingly, in my research, it's clear that they need to be giving much more attention to organisational questions. What I'd call organisational capacity of leaders is emerging as a really important dimension of their leadership success. So knowing who they want around the leader in terms of advice and support, who's in the Prime Minister's office and is there to help a Prime Minister get across the details of the job, which is very different to the job of an opposition leader, is critically important. The selection of ministers is a very important issue, and you need to think about the mix of talent who you want in key portfolios. There's also questions about the machinery of government. How do you want to organise the Australian Public Service to serve an incoming government? It's quite important to know about that, and the selection and recruitment of ministerial staff is always a real dilemma for governments. Even when you know they're going to win often, it's a really good question who actually manages the transition, and experience under different governments has been different. Transitions have worked really well when there's been a plan, a formal plan, and when there have been senior prospective or likely ministers responsible for it. Usually most oppositions are resource constrained. Governments determine the resources that are available to oppositions. So they have about a fifth of what the government has in terms of personal staff resources. So they're really drawing often on party elders, on people with ministerial experience, and very often a transition group would be like the party strategy group. But as it's quite right to say Abbott himself, or the opposition leader himself, will be deeply immersed in the campaign. But he needs to make sure, or any incoming leader needs to make sure, that they've got somebody who knows them, who knows what the job is, really driving that transition planning, because it will make it so much easier and better, and give them so much more political capital in the early days of a new government.